We are going to talk. It is Digi time. Digi. To understand DigiByte, it's not just information about DigiByte. You have to understand context. My daughter is talking to me. It's important. I have to respond. You're doing your ABCs. I'm doing my DigiBytes. Mommy's going to help you with your ABCs, and I'm going to help the community understand how DigiByte fits into the big picture. Ladies and gentlemen, I know everyone wants to know about DigiByte, but to understand understand the system, which is what I've tried to talk about in previous videos, and I probably will talk about in future videos. The key word to understand DigiByte is the fundamentals. Now, DigiByte is fundamentally a UTXO blockchain. Bitcoin is a UTXO blockchain. DigiByte stores information immutably. Bitcoin stores information immutably. DigiByte is decentralized. Bitcoin is decentralized. DigiByte is comparable to Bitcoin. DigiByte is fundamentally very similar, if not extremely comparable to Bitcoin. The point being, that's what makes it so special. It does exactly the same thing as Bitcoin, but better. It has its nuances. It has its unique characteristics that everyone is well aware of. It's multi-algo. It's difficulty adjustment, the dynamic difficulty adjustment, which makes it resilient to, I don't want to say the word penetration, but manipulation. And that is how it differs from Bitcoin. What is pertinent is that it does what Bitcoin does, and Bitcoin is special. It was special. It is special. It will be special. It'll always remain special. What Satoshi Nakamoto did is going to resound throughout history for a long time. And the same sentiment, the same functionality is achieved with DigiByte. So, where does DigiByte fit into the big picture? Fine. As I've said, you have to understand the big picture first to understand where DigiByte fits in, but I'll speak a couple of statements specifically to what I see. I've said it before. Its awesome purpose is asset management because of its speed. I'm not going to say it's immutability because other blockchains, UTXO blockchains, have the immutability component. But the speed at which DigiByte operates in combination with the immutability of its information storage capabilities makes it overwhelmingly perfect and unique compared to competitors for purposes of asset management. Now, you do get overlaps with regard to semantics, asset management. The value that a person has is an asset of sorts. And this is very common when we get into crypto, like banking deals with dollars, Fidelity deals with equities, the tax agency deals with property receipts. But these crypto projects kind of have all of this stuff rolled into one. And that's why it's just such a profound concept that is almost destined to fundamentally change everything about the status quo. Now, DigiByte can do what Bitcoin does. It's not going to do what Bitcoin does. Bitcoin is liquidity. It has all this value. It has this momentum. The most important word in cryptocurrency is momentum. It's not going to necessarily usurp, replace, overwhelm what Bitcoin is and the value that Bitcoin provides because Bitcoin was first. And that, John, and that is what's so important. DigiByte also has momentum. It's been here for so many years. It's entrenched. It's reached a critical mass of decentralization, means it's not going anywhere. And that's a good thing. It has utility. It has properties. The function that it can provide is almost, I'll use the word destined again, to be consumed. Why? If you have a street in your neighborhood, I'm pretty sure people are going to ride a bike on it, drive a car on it. Why? Because it's there. And that's the same thing with these old school entrenched blockchain technologies. It's there. I got a question. Why is the supply so high? Are they going to? No, there's no need to. The supply is high because it's the pertinence of supply is almost less important as compared to its emission and the time frame in which the emission is to occur. There's a certain quantity of max DigiByte that will ever be available. It's emitted every 15 seconds, like clockwork. The dynamic difficulty adjustment ensures that. And that is all that's pertinent. If you're thinking about the quantity of DigiByte that's available and in circulation with regard to its price, price is something that so many people that come into this space are overwhelmed with. What you have to focus on is disrupting the status quo. Once the status quo is disrupted, the price will be there. So you got to try to stop thinking about cryptocurrencies as investments. And what you want to do is think about participating in what they're meant to be or what they can potentially be and the services and functionality they can provide to society. It is disrupting the status quo. Can it replace the status quo? Overwhelmingly. Will it replace the status quo in the short term? Not necessarily. Is it possible? Sure. But you're talking about momentum. We go back to the word that I love that word. Society has a momentum. Status quo infrastructure has momentum. Questions? Caterpie, 21 billion, 13 billion in circulation. What can they be? Is really metadata embedded in a transaction. So ubiquitous, blurred lines of what an asset is, because really a individual DigiByte is an asset unto itself. So you get into semantics yet again. John, yeah, it is truly decentralized. What's most pertinent is that it's not necessarily more decentralized than other projects. It's not more decentralized than Bitcoin, but it's reached a critical mass of decentralization, which means it's embedded infrastructure. It's not going anywhere. It will persist. And that is the most important thing. Why? Because in 10, 15, 20 years, all right, in 20 years, a lot of stuff's going to have to change, but that's another topic of conversation. But in 5, 10 years, it will be there. And what happens, as I was saying with the road analogy, to infrastructure that exists, people will use it. Now, do people use roads because they're profitable? Sure. People drive on a road to go to work. People drive on a road to do business. A contractor drives on a road to get to a house to perform business. The point is, DigiByte is a road. People are going to use it. In that regard, hit them up on Telegram, reach out on the support channel, so on and so forth, and folks can direct you in the proper direction to get answers to questions like that. It is there's two things that drive adoption of new technologies, and I've spoken about this with regard to energy infrastructure and the 2020s energy transformation that I see. But cryptocurrencies in particular have reached the point where they offer the necessary characteristics of adoption. One, the technology needs to work. Two, it needs to be profitable. Boom and boom. Once, if something works and it can make someone money, it's going to be used. And that's the same thing with why solar and battery storage will be used. It's cheaper than the old stuff. And the same thing applies to DigiByte. Talk about like a title agency. Why pay people to manage titles? Why pay people to sign contracts and file contracts when all of this can be accomplished with a combination of smart contracts and DigiByte for asset management? You just replaced an entire minimum multi-million dollar company, eliminated all the HR staff, human resource requirements, made the process substantially faster. And that's one tiny, relatively tiny industry. I mean, in theory, you're talking about at a country level, all the title agencies across the country. This is disruption. This is kind of comparable to what comes to mind when you talk about automation and robotics with regard to assembly lines and manufacturing. Everything's going to change. And as I head down this train of thought, I've been saying this more and more and more about the 2020s and this whole event with our quarantine and this virus and things that I've spoken about in previous videos. This decade is going to be such a historic decade of change. I can't even state that firmly and adamantly enough. It's both um, saddening or upsetting or unsettling because of what's going on from a humanitarian perspective, but from a technology perspective, oh my God, I can't be more excited. Energy transformation, financial transformation, fiscal transformation, technology transformation, countless sectors of industry disrupted with regard to replacing the old with new, awesome, fancy blockchain-based technologies that eliminate people. When you eliminate people, you eliminate uncertainty, risk, you establish consistency and reliability. I mean, what DeFi is offering with regard to smart contract execution of contracts financially as well as policy, like the execution of a fixed set of sequences of events. I pay this in return. I get a copy of, I get a receipt, or I get a title, or I get access to an escrow account, so on and so forth. It's just so tantalizing and just awe-inspiring how much change is coming in this decade. Do you think that running a full node of DGB will be almost impossible because of one? So that is a complexity, and I'm sure that's going to come up more in the future. But as of right now, the size of the entire blockchain, the last time I synced a full node, it was comparable to Litecoin. It's not in the terabytes. It's not Ethereum. It's in the gigabytes, and it's relatively small. So most people could throw around the gigabyte numbers. I don't think it's a problem. And then you get into like prune and trim modes of wallets, and then I don't think that's an issue in any regards. I think that is overwhelmingly maintainable and not necessarily something that needs to be worried about. So the potential for DigiByte, I've said, is profound. It's entrenched. It will get consumed because profit will be made by consuming it. But you need to really understand the fundamentals of what it's replacing as an infrastructure component. So, DigiByte, you're thinking about investing, you think about the technology, broaden the scope of what you're thinking about, and also understand the big picture. Understand the way the existing system works. And this kind of leads into the other videos that I talk about, or the topics in my other videos that I talk about, and what's going on with the financial system, how certain industries work and function. And that will enhance your excitement for the potential, frankly, all blockchain, well, many blockchain projects, because of the profound capacity for them to disrupt and just knock them out of the water because they're better. And better is awesome. It takes, unfortunately, it does take time for better to be consumed. Now, you can't put time frames for when something's going to be consumed. From a futurist perspective, you can somewhat say it's inevitable that they will be consumed. Why? Because it's inevitable someone's going to want to make money using it. Now, these might sound like shallow, a shallow way to describe this technology, but that's something that humanity boils down to. Humanity boils down to how could we use it? How could we consume it? Is it going to make us money? And that's not a bad thing. We are humans, and that is fundamentally the what drives consumption, what drives progress, because we can use it for something, makes them overwhelmingly an important component to a diversified portfolio. You want to own infrastructure, cryptocurrency, and blockchain projects. DigiByte is a fundamental piece of cryptocurrency infrastructure. It provides the optimal blockchain parameters for asset management. Clearly, it has a value component, so it will have a capacity to transfer value. Um, Other projects will have a greater value component. Bitcoin is in the thousands of dollars and will likely be 10, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars in the coming years. DigiByte, from a quantity of max supply perspective, it should be 1,000th the price of Bitcoin, which entails it's going to have a heck of a price attribute as time goes into the future. So it will be a good thing to have DigiByte. Should it be the largest thing in your portfolio? In all honesty, I would say no. I would say it should have a substantial amount of your portfolio. For instance, I'll give you a number. I have it at about 8 to 10% of my portfolio. It could change countless industries, but I think that other projects need to be in your portfolio too. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Unibright, Chainlink. I talked about TBTC a little bit ago. It's not released yet, but it might be one of the biggest things to come later this month. It will provide a liquidity bridge between Bitcoin and Ethereum, where Bitcoin can serve as liquidity for Ethereum DeFi projects. And that is frankly awe-inspiring because we have Unibright providing and Kyber Network providing a liquidity protocol that where other ERC20 and other Ethereum-based projects can be used as liquidity, or you're able to also contribute to liquidity pools, so you could transfer between Ethereum and these tokens, and that is incredible. Throwing Bitcoin into that mix, allowing Bitcoin to be used as a collateral for borrowing, and then Bitcoin to participate in these liquidity pools, all vis-a-vis Ethereum DeFi projects. It's just incredible. Linky Stack. When you, frankly, I would like that at some point. I'd also like to be a teacher. I don't know what's going to play out. Right now, I just work, and I'm not overwhelmingly loving what I do. So one day, politics, can't say no. Wondering what your opinion is of DigiDollar. I mean, we got all these stable coins. Why not? Can't hurt. It's not going to. So here, DigiByte does not need to do literally anything for it to achieve its full potential. I've said this a couple of times, and I stand by that statement. Anything that's done to the DigiByte protocol, signatures, algo swap, uh, it's not going to overwhelmingly make a difference with regard to its adoption rate or consumption or it potential achieving its full potential. It's nice that we're able to show that we're doing work, and that's unfortunately because to gain adoption. I guess the general public needs to see us doing work, but I don't think it's necessary, meaning it's not a contributing factor in DigiByte actually. It does what it does, and it hasn't changed substantially over the years. Look at Dogecoin, does what it does, and hasn't changed substantially over the years. It's going to be users. DigiByte clearly because it's so fast, and it's immutable, and it's decentralized, so it's not going anywhere. Will be consumed. Big news with DGB. DGB is immutable, it's decentralized. It's not going anywhere. That's all that needs to be there with regard to news. What's important is not DGB news. What's important is industry news. What's important is the big picture, what's going on with the financial system, that we have the most historic deflationary event in modern history going on, planet-wide, Earth-wide. So what does that mean? This leaves an opening for new technologies. It means instability in the status quo financial system, meaning we may have to use alternative technologies. We got gold bugs floating. We need to go back to the gold standard. Why would we do that when we have a better gold 2.0 standard? What made Poloniacs and Justin Sun? Who cares? Tron. What a joke. Who cares? It's irrelevant. Binance is irrelevant. The exchanges in many regards are irrelevant. These centralized exchanges are irrelevant. You want to talk about the future, what you want is liquidity pools and decentralized exchanges. You want BlockNet, you want Komodo, atomic swaps, you want Uniswap, you want Kyber Network for liquidity pools. And what you want is these liquidity pools to have interoperability, which can be facilitated with protocols like BlockNet, where Ethereum could be completely interoperable with other blockchains, standard UTXO blockchains. And Syscoin could help bridge the gap because it has a capacity to shift back and forth between UTXO and Ethereum tokens, ERC20. So adoption on centralized exchanges is completely irrelevant. In fact, it's probably the worst aspect of blockchain technology and cryptocurrency projects right now, or it probably always has been. It's just horrible. It's like, so we could trade it. Who cares that we could trade it? That's not going to foster adoption. Who cares? It's an absolute waste of effort, or a false truth that it makes any difference whatsoever that is traded on a particular exchange. Now, back in the day, Poloniex was cool. I've used Poloniex, but it's irrelevant now. Most of the time nowadays, I'm using like Uniswap or Kyber Network, or BlockDX is awesome, or Komodo, or Shapeshift, or the only exchange that the on-ramps, you have VertBase, Gemini, Coinbase. They booted me off years ago. And that's about it. You're really going to go on Binance? Why are you going to go through the hassle when you don't have to, when you got Shapeshift? There's no point. There's class action lawsuit against CZ. Do you think there's user crypto decentralized projects? What outcome do you think is ideal? I mean, frankly, the best outcome possible for blockchain technology and cryptocurrency is regulation. Well, we want, fine. KYC is a questionable topic, but we want regulation. We want protocols. We want rules and guidelines. We want the technology to be absorbed into the status quo system and consumed by it, and so companies can make profit using it. We want Starbucks to accept cryptocurrencies. We want stores to accept them as forms of payment. We want lawyers to process their contracts, smart contracts, on some Ethereum protocol. I mean, you could do this stuff. You could do smart contracts with DigiByte, but it doesn't have the same velocity. And it's not a bad thing Just because you can do it doesn't mean you have to do it. What's pertinent is that one of the technologies does do it, because all of the technology, DigiByte, Ethereum, Blocknet, Unibyte, Chainlink, Syscoin, they all play a part in the puzzle, and that's what matters. If one succeeds, they all succeed. If one gets traction, they all get traction. It's not that one has to get more traction than the other. That's not what's important. This isn't a one wins all. This is one wins, everyone wins type scenario. And that's where we are with blockchain technology. Change Angel. I missed it. Change Angel is awesome. Changelly, the other one. Sure, fine. Non-custodial exchanges. Great. Wonderful. Vert base. Yay. I said it. I'll say it again. Does the job. Why are you gonna wire transfer money to Bitrex? Bitrex is cool. Those boys have always done right by pretty much every cryptocurrency project that is on the platform. Albeit, who the hell is going to go through the trouble of wire transferring money to them? Do an ACH transfer to Gemini is nice and easy. Credit cards, fine if you want to. It's a typical day at the house. You okay, honey? Well, she doesn't want to do school. Well, you have to do school to understand all this crazy stuff that daddy works with. All right, let's answer some questions. Do you think global slowdown will ease up crypto criteria since exchanges and crypto as a whole does ass up to the government taxation, which they will need now? Okay, let me digest this. I gotta digest this. This isn't a global slowdown, and I've talked in my other videos about this. This is a global deflation like never before. I don't want to go into it too far, but this is one of the most epic, historic periods of time in financial history. The only thing comparable is the Great Depression and Weimar Republic and Zimbabwe and Venezuela. This is like, it's not a collapse of the US dollar, it's the global reserve currency, but because of the way the things are hooked up at a multinational level, this actually is a deflationary event where the value of the dollar relative to other currencies globally is going to go through the roof. And Brent Johnson, Raoul Pal talk about why, and I wholeheartedly agree. And I think those are two names that will give you access to great information about how things are more likely than less to play out. They're overwhelmingly logical and have a base in causal rationality. That's really cool. Papunder, and how do you see crypto coming back with Zeb Pay relaunch? Do you see Indian market a good option? Sure. Any nation that starts to adopt and consume the technology will further and encourage other nations to adopt and consume the technology, and it will be a spiral effect, a domino effect, because once one country all of a sudden achieves substantial benefit from consuming the technology and other countries see it, it's going to spiral and it's going to spread like a virus, like COVID-19. Horrible joke. But it spreads because it's awesome. It spreads because of the way society receives it and people's passions for it and the amount of profit that companies can make using it, replacing entire data centers that require a team of DevOps engineers and actual hardware to maintain, when you can have a decentralized system of immutable storage spread across the planet Earth. That's cryptocurrency. That's blockchain technology. I feel the Indian market will have huge impact to crypto innovation and renaissance. Just my opinion. You got to remember, every culture responds to technology differently, and that is huge. South Korea, Japan, India. America is obviously more capitalistic and just thinks about it from a profit perspective. but I would imagine these other countries apply other culturally centric feelings to it. Maybe they have different disdains to fiat currency and consumption, and that's pertinent. Jared will probably have a couple of good sentences to say about that with regard to China and how they have their sentiment they potentially have about these types of technologies from a cultural perspective. Definitely more so than I can possibly have, never having had been there. Tim Draper making a big investment in Indian blockchain startup. Sure, why not? Listen, as a billionaire, none of us are, but the point is you want to be diversified. You want to have small portions of your portfolio in things that have a very high risk reward ratio. Massive reward with also massive risk. Throw around 1% here, 1% there, 1% there. And if something goes 10,000, 100,000 times on the money, and you do that 10 times and 9 of them go to zero and one of them goes 100,000 times on the money, that's how you win. And that's the whole point of a diversified portfolio that I have mentioned several times. You want to own not just one of anything, you need to own many things. You need to own the best of the best crypto projects. You need to own some gold and silver. You need to own some equities, which is basically the stock market. Most of it's garbage. You think I'm going to put money into are going to change the way society works in the 2020s. That's where I'm going to put my money. Be diversified, be smart, listen to other people. Listen to other people that are smarter than you. Listen, find some recordings by Raoul Pal, Brent Johnson. Listen to Peter Schiff. Listen to as many people as you can, because I am not the smartest person in the room, and there are people that are smarter than me, much smarter than me, much more experienced than me. And the more information you have, the better decisions you can make. Rennis, how you stated earlier in a prior post on Twitter, MMT has failed as an endgame, will be the dollar being digitized. The timeframes are irrelevant. What's pertinent is we are in full MMT mode. There is unlimited purchasing of assets. Basically, the Fed is backstopping every possible thing that could fail. So I actually, the dollar is deflating, particularly because every other country around the world is there's a quadrillion dollars of debt around the world, and there's about $4.5 trillion of money, dollars, period, in what's called M1 monetary supply at the Treasury. So there is not enough dollars to service the debt. So once the debt starts failing, domino effect. These countries don't have the dollars they need to service the debt. They don't have the dollars for the margin calls. They don't have the treasuries for the margin calls. They don't have the dollars to purchase the treasuries for the margin calls. So fundamentally, the only thing the Federal Reserve could possibly do is what's called these swap lines, where, let's say, the European Central Bank could print euros, print them, and give them to the U.S. for dollars, which the U.S. is printing, but there's a quadrillion dollars of debt. There's no possible way the U.S. could print that much dollars to feed the hunger of dollar debt. So you have this inflated bubble that's leaking, and the Fed is trying to keep it inflated, but it's not enough. So it's going to deflate. And as it deflates, these countries are printing more and more and feeding it into dollars, pushing the value of the dollar up relative to the other countries. And that is why the dollar is deflating. It's increasing in value relative to the other countries. And that has a whole host of ripple effects in systems, financial systems. It's going to ripple into real estate. It's going to ripple into equities. It's going to ripple into gold and silver. And it's going to ripple into cryptocurrencies. Interestingly enough, my observation is that cryptocurrencies are likely running in parallel to equity. So when the stock market goes to the moon, cryptocurrencies are going to go to the moon. Oh, yeah, I did say it. Stock market's going to go to the moon because as the value of other countries' fiat decreases relative to the dollar, the other countries are putting their money, getting rid of it, buying dollars, buying treasuries, buying United States bond, buying U.S. equities on the stock market. They got to get out of their currency and get into something that is increasing in value. So the odds are that the stock market is going to go. So, I wouldn't buy it right now, but you have to be very smart. The odds are there's a lot of systemic instability still with what's going on. We haven't even peaked with regard to the virus curve in the US yet. So there could be another 30, 40, 50% downside. For how long, I have no idea. But the whole point is when you think about the macro perspective, the whole big picture, as I said when I started this video, how does DigiByte fit into the whole big picture? You have to understand that time is irrelevant. What's pertinent is from the big picture perspective, when the dollars flow into the U.S., everything in the U.S. increases in value, including the value of the dollar relative to other currencies. Now, one of the more interesting implications of all this complexity that's occurring is the cost of goods and services. So if the quantity of dollars is inflating, the value of dollars is deflating, so the value is increasing. Now, you could apply the word inflation and deflation to the cost of goods and services. I'm inclined to think that the cost of goods and services is going to deflate. It's going to be cheaper. So the value of the dollar is increasing. You're going to be able to buy more goods and services. And this plays into salaries and wages. If all of a sudden the dollar is more valuable, companies are going to be paying people less money because their dollar can be used to buy more things. So this plays into disparity. Working people are going to make less money. Then people that have money are going to be in the stock market, which is going to keep going up, up, up. So this is going to increase that disparity between the people that have money and the people that really don't have anything. It gets very complicated. Very goddamn complicated. I've tried to do a couple of videos to touch on all these topics. Any other questions? Money goes where it's treated best. Yes, that's right. Which is such a contradiction for the United States because money is treated like shit in the United States. They're printing it by the trillions, and yet money's flowing here because it's treated the best. It's the global reserve, and that's a heck of a contradiction. It's unfair. It's not sound money. It's disappointing in so many regards. How much time is it going to take for DGB to be completely mined? Was it 2035? Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I'm horrible with actual specific facts. I'm a fan of Google. I guarantee if you Google that, it'll take 2 seconds to find it out. I'm a programmer by trade. You know how many times I remember what to Google to find a particular thing with regard to syntax and a command, rather than remembering the particular syntax or command. I just remember what to Google. So Google is your friend, and don't think asking a question ever is the wrong thing. Ask questions. That's how you have the best understanding possible of things. What can be expected? What can be expected value for DGB? 1,000 to 1 on Bitcoin is what Jared originally would have loved to see. I would love to see that. There's no way to speculate on it. I'm inclined to think it's going to be substantially greater than what it is now. If Bitcoin goes an order of magnitude higher, you're going to expect most cryptocurrencies to go an order of magnitude higher. It's logical and reasonable and rational. So, was it DigiByte? Let's see it at seen it at what 14 cents back in 2017. Let's see it at $1.40. That'd be nice. I'd love to see it at $1. I think most people would be happy to see it at 50 cents. Yay, that'd be pretty cool. So you can't force the future. You can't Hope it into existence. Be diversified. Put your chips on the table. Set your chess pieces up where you think the future is coming to. And if you have the chess pieces, enough chess pieces on the table, the future is going to hit, going to collide with one of your diversified positions. And that is how the big boys get started. They get their first break, and then they rinse, repeat, reuse. They do it over and over and over again. And that's the game. Be diversified. Get your chips on the table, ladies and gentlemen. All right. That was a nice little chat. It was about 40 minutes. Any further questions? Does anyone have any thoughts, ideas? I love to talk. My wife says I love to talk. I think it's a curse. I think she thinks it's a blessing. I have no idea. You guys can have your own opinion. All right. Y'all have a wonderful week. Tweet at me if you have anything you want